you go, there's no way. I'm already still burning. So hold me close, now baby. I do what I'm told, still learning to take my chances, to take my time, to keep on dancing, to walk that line, yeah. You got me shifting the paradigm, no longer wishing, you're my lucky strike. Love the way you ride, look into my eyes, say you're ready to go. $1 million life, yeah. We could roll the dice, act like you're surprised, but you already know. Oh yeah.
Hey everyone, Mitchell here from Dawn Aquaculture. We're a coral farm located in Edmonton that focuses on sustainably producing coral for the Canadian market. In this video, we're going to talk about one of the strains of SPS corals that we farm, the pink Hystrix bird's nest. The strain of Seriatopora hystrix that we farm and refer to as a pink Hystrix bird's nest is one of those SPS corals which wouldn't necessarily be considered a higher end strain of SPS coral, and yet a mature colony of this coral really stands out and, in my opinion, looks far more beautiful than many of the other higher end strains of SPS corals that you'll come across. The most striking characteristics of this coral is how densely packed those thin branches are, the vivid pink coloration, and the sharp tips, which is the new growth of the colony. With how sharp the tips of the branches are, I wouldn't blame you if you were worried about a fish getting hurt if it were to bump into the coral. While the tips look very sharp, they aren't actually, and at those new growth tips, it's so thinly branching that it's very brittle. So when I've seen a fish bump into these colonies in the farm, the fish will swim away unscathed, and sometimes a couple of the tips will break off, and then we'll grab those tips out of the bottom of the tank and mount them onto a new frag plug to grow more frags for you. One other important thing to know about how this coral grows is that unlike many other SPS corals, which will first encrust a base on your rock, then grow branches up, this strain in particular, but bird's nests in general, don't do much encrusting on the rock at all. They mostly just grow branches up. We have some strains of bird's nests that will do some encrusting, but this strain in particular barely encrusts at all. So it's important to give this coral a solid foundation in your rock work. This coral grows fast and it becomes top heavy very quickly because it does not encrust. I've seen many people place this coral on the side of their rock work, which will grow fine for a year or two, but eventually, if it's not well attached to the rock, that top of the colony, which is hanging off the side of their rockwork, just becomes too heavy and it'll crash down. I always like to suggest that you place it somewhere on your rockwork where it's more vertical than horizontal. That way, as it becomes more and more top heavy, it's less likely to break that super glue or putty that's holding it to the rock. One other important thing to mention about the coloration of the pink Hystrix bird's nest is that this is a coral that looks really good under a whiter light spectrum, but doesn't look all that great under a deep blue light spectrum. We grow these corals and we film these shots under LEDs running AB+, and I consider AB+ to kind of be that middle point between the bright white light and the deep blue light. But if you're one of those people that runs that deep blue light for your entire day, I would probably pass on this coral. You're not really going to get to appreciate it the same way you would if you were running a whiter light spectrum for at least a portion of the day. I often see people online recommending bird's nests as the best beginner SPS coral, and I actually don't necessarily agree with that. I've always felt things like Pavona or many of the Seriatopora and Stylophoras are easier, but I'd probably put Seriatopora next on that list, but a slight step up from them in terms of difficulty. It definitely still has many of the same requirements that some of the harder SPS corals like Acropora and Montipora have. They like good light, although they definitely don't require really high light levels to thrive in an aquarium. This colony in particular was grown in roughly 120 par, although it definitely wouldn't shy away from numbers closer to 300 or 350 and would probably turn a little bit more of a hot pink in those conditions. But for the pink Hystrix bird's nest, more important than lighting is flow. As this coral turns into a more mature colony, it grows so dense that it becomes very challenging to get flow into those inner branches of the colony to keep them clean and healthy. This is one of the ways that this coral can suffer from its own success. It'll grow into such a large colony so quickly that if you're not getting enough flow through the colony, those inner branches, the oldest branches of the colony, can start to die off. If this starts to happen, it's not a big deal. Clearly you're doing a very good job of maintaining your tank to have even grown the coral to a size where this becomes a problem. But if you do notice it, simply cut off the healthy parts of the colony near the outer edges and remove the dead part of the coral and just plant those healthy parts back down where it was and just start the cycle over again. Another area where this coral can suffer from its own success is when it comes to water chemistry. And the pink Hystrix bird's nest struggles with water chemistry in the same way that all of the very fast growing SPS corals struggle with water chemistry. These corals appreciate very stable water chemistry, but as the coral grows exponentially, the demands on your major and minor trace elements will also grow exponentially. So you can't get complacent with the amount of 2-part or trace elements that you're dosing every day. You need to make sure you're testing and you're increasing how much you're dosing as the coral requires it. Thankfully, with bird's nest being one of the easier to keep SPS corals, it is going to be a little bit more forgiving when it comes to this, but still, the stabler you can keep that water, the better. And when I say stable, I mean stable. I don't actually care what your alkalinity, calcium, or magnesium are. All I care about is, are they roughly the same today that they were yesterday, and are they going to be roughly the same tomorrow? Every tank falls on its own natural chemical balance of the major and minor trace elements, and your goal is just to maintain that balance, not to chase any numbers in particular. In terms of feeding, the pink Hystrix bird's nest is not a coral that I necessarily feel strongly about feeding. Now, we do keep it in a system that we feed amino acids to every single day, and every couple of days we'll feed zooplanktos and reef blizzard to, so I'm sure it benefits from that slightly in growth rate and coloration, but it would be fine if we weren't feeding the tank. If you have one of these corals and you're struggling with keeping your tank clean, don't dirty your tank to feed this coral, it's not worth it. I hope you've enjoyed this video on the pink Hystrix bird's nest, and I hope I've helped you decide whether or not this coral makes sense in your aquarium. If you want to learn more about it or any of the other coral strains that we farm at Dawn Aquaculture, you can find more information on our website, ndaquaculture.ca. I'll have it linked in the description below the video. So thanks for watching and stay tuned.